Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone. In the last class we discussed about the contingent valuation method, which is a family method of under this stated preference method. So today we will be discussing the choice experiment method. This is the second method under this stated preference method. And broadly in this lecture we will be talking about what is the choice experiment method and what is the background or what is the theoretical background and history of the choice experiment method, and if you want to conduct a choice experiment method, then what are the likely steps we need to include, and then finally we will be discussing what are the differences between the contingent valuation method and the choice experiment method in order to find which method is suitable is most appropriate under this stated preference method. And it will be followed by some of the disadvantages or limitations of the choice experiment method. So, before talking about what is the choice experiment method, let us have a look on the family of the stated preference method. As you understand that choice experiment is one of the method under the stated preference method. So, our focus today is explaining this choice experiment method. So, when we are talking about the stated preference method, broadly it is divided into two broad categories. One is your contingent valuation method that we have already discussed, and the second one is multi-attribute valuations. So, under this contingent valuation method, we talked about what is open contingent valuation and what is the referendum contingent valuations. But we have discussed only the simplest form of contingent valuations, and today we will be discussing the multi-attribute valuations. That means we are talking about if there are multiple attributes are assigned, then how to take a decision or how to know what is the welfare implications of this particular change in the presence of multiple attributes. And under this multiple attribute valuations, there are again it is divided into two parts. One is the preference based cojoint analysis and the second one is the choice based choice modeling. And again the preference based cojoint analysis is divided into two different methods. One is the contingent rating and the second one is paired comparisons. Okay. And likewise, when you are saying it is the choice based method, there we will be talking this can be of two types. One is the contingent ranking and the second one is the choice experiment. So, however, we will be discussing a most common form of multi attribute valuations, that is the choice experiment method. So, under this stated preference method, we talked about the contingent valuations, that is the commonly used, and under this multi attribute valuations we will be talking about the choice experiment, that is also very general commonly used in under this stated preference method. So, now the question is why we are talking about this choice modeling or choice experiment when we have already discussed about the contingent valuation method, that is one of the family member method under this stated preference method. So, the challenge is that in the contingent valuation method we cannot tackle the multiple attributes in the valuation exercise. So, that means in the contingent valuation method what we talked about, we just talked about some hypothetical scenario. If this is going to be changed, then we try to find out the valuations or economic valuations or welfare measurement if this conditions has been changed or it is going to be changed in correspondence to the original situations. So, that means in contingent evaluation method we talked about two scenarios, right, and there we talked about that this is the current scenario, existing scenario, and this will be the change scenario in case the policy is going to be implemented and necessary changes will be done accordingly. But when there is an involvement of multiple attributes for that particular goods or service in question that is going to be evaluated under this policy exercise, then it is difficult to apply this contingent valuation method, because contingent valuation method cannot deal with the multiple attributes associated with the particular policy change and how to evaluate those multiple attributes of that environmental good and service under this policy discussions. So, therefore, in order to avoid these limitations of contingent valuation method, choice this multiple or multi attribute valuation has been developed, and here this multiple or multi attribute valuations can be applied in order to avoid the limitations of contingent valuation method. So, therefore, we can say this application of the multiple or multi attribute valuations has come up as a response to the limitations that we are facing under this contingent valuation method. And moreover, in general we are saying this contingent valuation method and this multiple multi attribute method, like we are talking about this in this context, we will be highlighting the choice experiment. So, there is a difference. So, how they are different, this contingent valuation method and the multi attribute method. So, in case of this multi attribute method like your choice experiment, these methods, they are allowing the practitioner to estimate the values for a multiple attributes of a particular product or a particular policy in discussions, and we are also measuring the how these multiple attributes they are traded off, we are also measuring. So, in that way we are saying this multiple attribute method, it is better than the contingent valuation method, because contingent valuation method is not capable to estimate the multiple attributes of a particular good or particular product or services in discussions, and that is why we will be choosing this multiple attribute method in comparison to the contingent valuation method. And again, if the theoretical underpinnings are concerned, this contingent valuation this multiple attribute valuation method, so it is based on the Lancaster's theory, so which is known as the Lancasterian microeconomics. So, he propounded this theory, that is new theory of demand in 1966. So, there he talked about that individuals, they derive the utility from the very characteristics or very variables, very attributes of that particular good in discussions. So, that means the individuals, they are not deriving the utility from that particular good in question, rather individuals are deriving the utility because of the attributes associated with the good. And that is what at that point of time it was considered it is a new theory in the demand. And moreover, the this multiple attribute valuations, it has also taken the theoretical backbone from the random utility theories, and McFadden has got this Nobel because of this explanations under this random utility theory. So, here in case of random utility theory, we are saying the utility has a very deterministic and probabilistic component. So, in that way you can say that if you want to find what is the theoretical backbone of this multi attribute valuations, then we can attribute it to this broad two theories. One is the Lancasterian microeconomics theory and the second one is McFadden's random utility theory. So, what exactly is this choice experiment method? So, obviously it is one of the family member of the stated preference method, and here this method tries to explain how to construct an attribute based experiment. So, that is why its name is choice experiment. So, we are doing, whenever we are conducting this choice experiment exercises, we are actually doing an experiment by taking into account different attributes of a particular good or commodity or a service, environmental service in questions that is under the consideration of the policy. So, this choice experiment helps us how to construct an attribute based experiment and to estimate the economic values of a set of attributes of a particular environmental good or environmental services in question. So, here it is helpful to do two things. One is how to construct an attribute based experiment, and second how to estimate the economic values associated with a set of attributes of particular good or particular environmental service. And the very objectives of this choice experiment is to estimate the economic values for the characteristics or for the attributes of that good or service in questions. So, obviously this goods or service in questions is a part of your policy analysis. And for doing this exercise, that is conducting this choice experiment method, we need to actually create a hypothetical situations, but this hypothetical situation is not just like the contingent valuation method. Rather, this hypothetical situation seems to be very realistic. That means, we are creating the realistic scenarios, although they are hypothetical in nature for the respondents, and we are also creating the alternative scenarios, that these are the possible scenarios if the policy is going to be changed, whether you are we are going for improvement in the environmental quality, or we are ready to tolerate existing poor environmental quality. And moreover, so far the application is concerned, so far the understanding of the respondents are concerned. So, it is one of the simplest method so far this choice based approach is concerned, because the respondents, they can easily cognize the alternative scenarios or set of alternatives based on different attributes. So, that is why this choice experiment is one of the simplest method in terms of cognitive requirements as well. And moreover, in this method, the respondents are given a set of choices, as you understand the very meaning of the method choice experiment. So, here a set of choices are given to the respondents with alternative choices, right, to a particular scenario in discussions, and then the respondents are asked to choose their preferred alternative from the set of choices. So, we will be directly asking that given these are the alternative choices, which one is the preferred one for you. So, now after doing this exercise, then the particular good or service in question, it is decomposed according to the first one is attributes or characteristics, and the second one is based on the levels of the attributes. So, the thing that we must understand, that we need to decompose the particular good or particular service, or because of which we are talking about under a particular policy. So, we need to actually decompose this particular good or service in question into two things. The first one is we need to discuss decompose the attributes or characteristics. Then we need to talk about the various levels of attributes. So, let us take an example. If you are talking about there is the problem of the biodiversity crisis, and in order to maintain this biodiversity, let us suppose say a particular endangered species is needs to be conserved, and because of which policy is needed. Now, the question is that we need to find what are the which one is to be conserved. So, that is say this particular X endangered species. Then we will be talking about the various attributes of this biodiversity in a particular region, that how many endangered species are there, or whether only one endangered species is there. And then we will be finding the very characteristics of this particular biodiversity area, and we will be finding that there are many attributes or characteristics that is associated with this particular area, right, like your forest cover, richness in the biodiversity or species. Then after doing all this or identifying these attributes or characteristics, we need to find the levels. What levels? If you are talking about the forest cover, so what is the density, what is the size, whether it is moderately covered or poorly covered, or whether it is thick in cover. So, we need to find out what is the level of this corresponding attributes. So, if you are taking 10 or 20 characteristics or attributes of a particular good or service in question, we need to find out what are the levels assigned to, or what can be the levels of all these attributes and characteristics. And moreover, these attributes can be quantitative or qualitative. So, when you are talking about this biodiversity area, and when we are talking about the attributes, it can be in terms of size. So, size can be the quantitative one. Let us say we are talking about how many tigers are there in particular region, in that particular biodiversity area, or if it is a marine area. So, we are talking about an endangered species like olive ridley. So, we are again counting what is the in quantitative figure, how many are there. And it can also be the qualitative in nature. Let us say, so what is the size of the particular species, and you do not know, right. So, in that case you can say that whether it is more or less more frequently available or visible, or less frequently available or visible. So, taking into account these aspects, these attributes can be of quantitative or qualitative in nature, and sometimes we can also combine this quantitative and qualitative attributes. And it is also possible. So, when you are saying that for creating this scenario, you are saying the original or what you are saying, the base scenario, let us say is the size of the population, size of this endangered population, then we are saying the density of the populations, right. Then we can also say the food availability for them, the kind of food chain, and we can also combine with these quantitative attributes with these qualitative attributes. So, it is also possible. So, that is what we can say, these attributes can be qualitative or quantitative, and it can be of a combined nature. And always remember that in understanding this choice experiment, we need to actually create the very original one, that is the status quo, which is known as the status quo, or which is also known as the baseline scenario. What is there originally right now? And we are comparing this originality with some hypothetical scenarios that this could be done if some intervention is there. So, we are comparing. So, for that reason, this status quo is introduced as an alternative in the choice sets that we are creating. And so far the models are concerned. So, what kind of models we can use for doing this choice experiment? So, we can say we can use certain econometric models like your multinomial logit or conditional logit and random parameters logit. So, these are the popular applications of these models in the choice experiment or choice data. So, now let us talk about the history of the choice experiment. So, is it a newly developed? Yes, in comparison to this contingent valuation method, it is nascent in its concept. But however, this origins of this choice experiment, it is found in the history of the social sciences like your psychology in economics, in product designs or marketing, we are also finding the applications of the choice experiment method. And particularly in economics, because obviously it is a part of your environmental economics exercise. So, that is why we are more focusing on economic the application of choice experiments in economics. So, there we can find this conceptual foundations that is derived from the hedonic method. So, what is the hedonic method? We have already discussed this in the reveal preference methods. So, hedonic preferences and there we talked about the example of the property pricing or the house pricing. So, how the individuals or consumers they are deciding that which house is to purchase, it depends upon the very attributes of the house. So, that means we are talking about the demand for a particular good or service, it depends upon the characteristics or various attributes it is having. So, this hedonic method is the theoretical base of this choice experiment method, and moreover we can find this hedonic regressions and hedonic prices. So, earliest of the application you can find in code 1939 in automobile sectors it was applied, and also hedonic price indices it was also applied in 1971. And we have already talked about the Lancaster's theory of consumer demand, that is also one of the backbone in forming this choice experiment. So, we also talked about this random utility theory. Originally it was developed by this Thurstone in 1927, then this fellow McFadden expanded actually got this idea of random utility and propounded the discrete choice theory. So, all these are the very theoretical backbone that shape the currently what we are finding the choice experiment. And moreover, this so far the econometric model is concerned, again this fellow McFadden he has developed this multinomial logic in order to apply this discrete choice theory or random utility theory, that is dealing with the choice data. So, after discussing the theoretical background that what are the very theories that are applicable and in which fields that can be applicable. Now, let us understand what are the very steps that we need to discuss if you have to conduct this choice experiment. So, we need to be careful about the 7 different steps that we must consider in applying this choice experiment method. The first one is how to characterize the decision problem, characterizing the decision problem or identifying the problem itself. Then we will be finding the characteristics or attributes. Then the second step is identifying and describing the very attributes, developing an experimental design, develop the questionnaire, then collect the data, estimate the model, and once the model is estimated, we will be interpreting the very result for the policy analysis and decision making purposes. So, let us discuss this steps one by one. So, the first step that must be followed in the choice experiment is characterizing the decision problem. How to characterize the problem that we are talking about, or the policy that is talks about. So, there we need to identify clearly the dimensions of the problem. So, what is the problem itself? We need to identify it, and there we need to discuss about the very scope of the problem, and there we need to talk about these 2 things, broadly these 2 things, that is the geographical scope of the potential changes, right, if some policy attributes is going to happen, and the temporal scope of the potential changes in case of this policy attributes. So, when we are talking about this geographical and temporal, some of the questions that must be asked, for example, whose values are to be included in the valuations, who is going to be valued, whether it is the endangered species in the biodiversity area or who else, what is the discussion, what is the problem about. And then we will be talking about, if this is the question, out of this policy who is going to be impacted, whether it is the local villagers who are living in and around this particular biodiversity area, and how will if they are going to be impacted, then we need to also ask the question and find that how will they be impacted out of this particular situations. And along with this geographical and temporal scope, we need to talk about the locations of this substitute site, that whether any other similar sites or substitute sites are located within that geographical boundary. And we need to also talk about the temporal considerations, that over a time period how this particular scenario has been changing, or it has changed, or it is going to be changed. So, under these characteristics, or how to characterize the decision problem, we need to actually talk about this dimensions problem. And moreover, the second thing that we need to take care under this identifying the problem is what type of values that can be associated with the changes if these changes are going to be materialized, right. So, when you are saying that what kind of values, then we are obviously talking about whether the choice that we are making here, or experiment that we are doing here, is related to the use values or the non-use values, like your passive use values, or it reflects most thing, use value as well as non-use value, which we are saying that is the total economic value. And the next step that we must follow, that is, once identifying the problem in discussions, then we need to find what are the attributes of the particular problem in discussion and what are the very characteristics. We need to describe it. So, here under this step we need to identify and describe the very relevant characteristics, let us say in our case our biodiversity conservation and endangered species conservation, and how to identify and how to describe the very attributes. So, in case of this pro conservation program or pro conservation policies, in our example, if you have to identify and describe the relevant attributes, then we must actually take the help of the focus group. So, who are the focus groups? So, they are the stakeholders, or somehow they are related to this particular attributes or particular goods and or services and questions. And moreover, we can also take the help of the key informants like your scientific communities on that particular area, or your academicians or your researchers, or some individuals whose expertise are related to this particular problem. So, all these will be the part of your focus group discussions, and thereby from their discussions only we can identify and describe the relevant attributes in the problem. And in attribute levels, we can talk about whether this particular attributes is present or absent in all these scenarios. So, we are talking about a baseline scenarios, then we are talking alternative first scenario, second alternative, third alternative, and likewise. Then we are finding in the first alternative, so this is the base one or original one, whether the particular attributes level is present or absent. In the second one, we are also in the alternative scenario 1, we are also talking about whether the attributes, if what is the level, whether it is present or absent. And after identifying the attributes, then we can also interpret not only in terms of presence and absence, we can also talk about what is whether what is the richness or what is the moderate availability of this particular attributes. We can use even a Likert scale if it is permissible, or if the attributes are like that, we can label them. And after doing this, we can also specify the price or cost level. So, how if this is in case of this original situation, so what is the price or what is the cost level that the focus groups they are talking about, and how they are going to pay for it if they need a better case, better change. And in the second one also we are narrating all these attributes and labeling them. Then we can also specify the price or cost level associated to this alternative 1 scenario and likewise. So, after doing this exercise we can develop an experimental designs. So, in developing an experimental design we need to determine the number of alternatives that is present in each choice set, because once you understand these are the choices, then you are dividing this into number of alternatives. This is the first alternative, second alternative, third alternative and fourth alternative on a particular thing, right. And this and we also need to talk about the number of choice sets, not only alternative but also these sets. And once the choice quotients, these choice sets are determined, then the choice quotients can be determined. So, choice quotients can include the very status quo or base level, that is the original one, this is the alternative. So, it is just like a base level or status quo in each choice set and alternative indicating a change from the very original or status quo. How this particular alternative 1 is different from this, or how this alternative 2 is different from this, or how alternative 3 is displaying different characteristics from the original one. Then the next step will be the how to develop a questionnaire, because you need to capture the opinions and of the respondents. So, for questionnaire development, it is necessary for conducting the surveys from the respondents, and the medium of this questionnaire or the formats, it can be in terms of emailing, or which you are saying you emailed to XYZ persons, and then you are getting mail back from them on that particular survey. It can be in terms of telephonic interactions. It can be in terms of your social media exercises, just like your Facebook or Twitter. We are posting this, these are the questions or these are the survey questionnaires, and based on your understanding you need the responses from them. We can also use this survey using the paper, pencil or computer assisted, or we can also take the internet based surveys, like just like you are saying this Google spreadsheet, you are sharing to those concerned respondents and you are getting back. And so far the data collection is concerned, we need to be very careful, and especially we need to be careful so that we can prevent the respondents from reading what is written ahead of the just current one they are reading. So, that means we need to prevent the respondents from reading the ahead what kind of questions are there in the next pages, and even we need to be very careful in preventing that they should not actually go back to the previous questions, and they should not be allowed to change the responses, because in that way they will be actually they may change their responses by being biased. However, in this one is very difficult in paper pencil survey, because the respondents they directly using this, they are writing their responses corresponding to the questions posed, and they do have the liberty to go back and go forward this questionnaire set. But however, in case of the computer based surveys like your Google spreadsheet or some of the in person if you are doing, then it is difficult, it is easy to prevent these respondents from going back or moving forward. And after all, the most of this care that must be actually taken into account in estimating the model, because that is what the policy makers are actually emphasizing, and the results are very important. So, for estimating the model, we can use the preference parameters using this random utility model, and we can also use econometric specifications that we have already talked about, the Logit model that is used, or these are the models that we have discussed to analyze the multinomial logits that we can also use in choice data. And so, for the policy analysis and decision support is concerned, so this is the last application stage, that whatever the results we are estimating, now we will be using applying to the decisions, or will be based on these results we will be taking the decisions. And most of this choice experiment applications, they estimate the welfare measures, right, how individuals are better off, worse off in case of a policy change. They also estimate the predictions of behavior, that how the behavior gets changed in case of this policy change, or even estimating both these welfare measures as well as the prediction of behavior. And to evaluate these welfare effects, multiple policy options are involved, right, involving a set of combinations of attributes and also talking about the levels. And however, although we discuss, or we got to know that this choice experiment is better than the contingent evaluation method, but still this choice experiment method suffers from certain issues. The first thing is that we need to be very careful in designing the scenarios, because we need to identify each of the attributes, and we need to even identify the levels of these attributes. So, we need to be very careful, and sometimes we get biased, or sometimes we because of misinformation or lack of information, we may avoid some of these attributes. We cannot actually create the scenarios as it should have been. And moreover, we need to be careful in applying the econometric treatments, like how to which kind of specification, econometric specifications we need to apply for this choice experiment. So, these are some of the limitations or challenges that we have in choice experiment. So, now after understanding this, now we will be having this difference, that choice experiment evaluation and your contingent evaluations. So, you can just summarize that this contingent valuation, it actually is applicable, or it is producing a very single value for, and this single value is for the overall change in the policy that is talking about, whether it talks about the change in environmental good or services. So, it is just producing, estimating the single value for the overall changes. Whereas, if you are talking about this choice experiment, then it is estimating the value for each individual attributes. So, it is not just a single value for the overall changes, rather we are subdividing that if these attributes of this particular good in question changes, then what is the welfare change. If the second attributes will be changing, what will be the welfare change, and likewise. So, that means we can actually find out the value, estimate the value for each of these individual attributes of that particular good, environmental good or service in question, that is under the consideration of public policy. And moreover, this choice experiment is a kind of generalization of contingent evaluation method, rather than asking the respondents to choose between the base case, that is status quo, and the specific alternatives. So, in choice experiment, what we are doing, we are asking the respondents to choose between the cases, not just like two alternatives. So, in CVM, what we are finding, we are just only having two alternatives. One is your baseline, your this original or status quo scenario that is existing, and the second one is the first alternative only, that is in discussions. It is only. So, thereby we are saying in CVM, the respondents, they are asked to choose between a base case, that is the original case, and specific alternatives. This is the specific alternative discussion, which one is better, and if the alternative is better, then what is the welfare change. But in case of this choice experiment, we are asking the respondents to choose between cases or different, based on different characteristics or attributes, by different attributes, and then we are creating a dozen or set of scenarios that is taken from all possible scenarios. So, if the possible scenarios are, let us say we are taking into account the attributes like your size is an attribute, or you are talking about the density is an attribute, we are talking about what is the quality of that particular environment good or service, it is also an attribute. Then from these attributes and all this level, whether the size is small, medium or large, then if density it is scarcely available or moderately available, or it is frequently available. So, after doing this, or you are talking about the quality, whether it is good, moderate or bad. So, after identifying all these attributes, we are labeling these attributes, then we will be having set of choices. What is the possible scenario here? So, here we can just find out the factorial of this. Let us say it is 3. So, for size is concerned it is 3, and your density is concerned it is 3, and quality even it is 3. So, the probable choices would be 3 into 3 into 3, 9, 27 sets will be there. So, out of these possible scenarios, we can take some of the scenarios that is tested here, that out of 27, let us say we are taking 7 scenarios, alternative scenarios, and corresponding to the original scenarios in case of choice experiment. So, the chart is suggested reading that you can follow, but follow this one, this is a must. So, this is the chapter 5 from this book, a primer on the non-market valuations. Thank you very much.